nicotine pouch. They're not sponsors though, so I don't want that to be part of the episode.
Yeah, right. Yeah, do not mention the brand name. They haven't earned it. So anyway, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for doing this with us. And
of course, thanks for having me.
I want to start out with a question. So I want to call out that Avenged Sevenfold was ranked number 47 on Loudwire's list of top 50 metal bands of all time. And it turns out that I have seen every one of the top 5 bands on that list live. Number 5 was Slayer.
Okay.
Number 4 is Judas Priest. Number 3, Metallica. Number 2, Iron Maiden. And number 1, Black Sabbath. And in fact, Black Sabbath was my concert ever with Ian Gillan singing. So your band has gigged with many of the bands on the top 50 list, and I'm wondering, can you share a memorable Spinal Tap moment that you've had, Johnny, with either any of these top 5 bands or any other band on that list, which includes Motorhead, Slipknot, Korn, Dream Theater?
Oh man, well I'll just go to the top 5 actually, because the first one that's coming to mind is the first time we played a show with Iron Maiden. They took us out in Europe. I think this was in 2007 or 8, sometime around there. We were touring for our self-titled record. And yeah, we got, the first show was out in Bologna, Italy. And I remember the name of the city so well because we went out and we had heard, rumors of the Iron Maiden fan base just being really, disrespectful to the opening bands, let's put it that way. And we get out there and we're like, no, we're a big band. We're doing well. They're going to be excited to see us, And we get out there and they're just arms crossed, stoic, just staring at us, like staring daggers through us. And that was all everybody in the front of the crowd, right? All the Iron Maiden fans had come to the barricade. But in the back, there was about 5,000 Avenged Sevenfold fans that were chanting Avenged Sevenfold before we went on, and they were getting onslaughted with booze for it. They were just getting, like, our fans were getting fucking demolished out there for it. And then they started throwing bologna and, what was it, like pepperoni sandwiches on stage. They just started throwing sandwiches at us. And I remember thinking, I was like, of course, it's bologna, and we're getting bologna sandwiches thrown at us. It was comical, but it pissed us off, to be honest. At the time, we were like, "Fuck," It was a blow to the old ego. But then we just, we ended up putting our heads down and finishing out the rest of the tour like we're gonna win them over, and we eventually did. Because the first few thousand at these Iron Maiden shows in Europe literally get on trains and travel to every single fucking show. So you see the same 3,000 people. That's like about how far out you see in the crowd, right? And like you're seeing those same people, and eventually we started to earn their respect. But a Spinal Tap moment. I don't know too many other bands that had bologna sandwiches thrown at them in Bologna, Italy. So
did you have the presence of mind to sing the Oscar Mayer song, My Bologna Has a First Name? It's Oscar.
Oh, that would have been great. No, we didn't.
Because Oscar Mayer has a name away with Bologna. Yeah. We're from Wisconsin, so.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we did have, our singer Matt did like make a comment about it. He's like, you can't write this shit. They're throwing sandwiches at us on the mic. It was fun. We kind of had a laugh about it, but they were brutal. And it took about a week, and then they were much kinder to us. But it took about a week of us just like showing them, we're here, we're a real band, and we play real music, they're not just some pretty boys out there. So,
I have one question in the Spinal Tap sense. Was the sandwiches did the meat fit inside the bread of the sandwiches?
No. Oh, hell no.
Damn.
It's an Italian sandwich. That meat's fucking slopping all over the side of it. That was not a clean sandwich.
That's really funny. Well, I'll tell you, when I saw, Iron Maiden, and Alan just mentioned that he and I are both from Wisconsin originally. So they were going to play a show on the Seymour County Fairgrounds, outdoors in the country. And it was Iron Maiden, Rat, and Accept, the German band. And, I don't know, I can't remember when the doors opened or the gates opened like at, I don't know, noon or 2 in the afternoon, something like that. And we're all standing there, and that's when the buses and the semis showed up. Like, they were so late, we had to watch the entire stage get set up, band after band. Iron Maiden's whole thing gets set up, and then Rad in front of them, then Accept in front of them. So we were standing there for hours before they even started, and it was really, as a 16 or 17-year-old, it was semi interesting to kind of see, the behind the scenes machinations happen. But it was a bit of an oddball kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean the Iron Maiden setup is not an easy setup. I mean,
Right.
they got Eddies all over the place now. I mean, the tour we did with them, in Europe was the Somewhere Back in Time tour. They were on that cycle. So what they had done is brought out. They were playing a lot of songs off of Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, I'm sorry, not Seventh Son. What's the Pyramid one? Why am I drawing a blank? Somewhere Back in Time, right? No. Anyways, they're playing all the, like, Aces High. They were opening with Aces High and stuff. So some songs that they hadn't brought out in a while. So they brought out the production for it, too. They brought out, like, they kept all that stuff in storage, too, and brought it all out, is what we learned later. So it was really cool. And then actually, another funny story about their production is, like, one of the last days of the tour, I think we did a Grass Pop festival, and they had this devil, that animatronic thing that someone had to physically go inside and move around, right? There's just, like, these 2 bars that you moved around. And they typically did it. Steve Harris's daughter would do it because you had to be kind of smaller to get up in there. It wasn't a very big space. And they're like, "You're small. Would you like to do that one time?" And I was like, "Yes, I would love to be fucking doing that, And
That's super cool.
So they put me up in the devil, like the last show we had with them, all their crew guys. They were super sweet guys. They started fucking with so you're up in this thing and you can't really move that well, and you got these things. And you're just like moving, and the devil's doing this and breathing fire and stuff. But you're in this little, like, almost tank kind of thing, right? And my feet are dangling, though. And one of the tall crew members, I forget his name, I apologize. This was years ago, obviously. He starts taking my shoes off and wrapping my feet in duct tape and then putting a lighter to my feet. I was like, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?" And I'm trying to do this. It was pretty insane, man.
That's a horrible thing. Oh, I think we lost Alex.
Yeah, we did. I saw that.
That's my power play. I just, like, I pulled this cord. Now I'm going to take over the show.
Let's give him just a second.
The beauty of recording and editing this later.
Yes, exactly.
Where are you right now, Johnny?
I'm at my house in Huntington Beach.
Oh, you're in Huntington Beach. I'm in Studio City.
Oh, sick.
I actually used to have a vegan cheese company, and I would go to I would do for 3 years, and I would do demos out in the OC at Mother's.
Oh yeah. The Mother's.
Yeah, so I would go to Huntington Beach all the time and have people go, "What do you mean this is made out of nuts?" They're like, "Yes, it's not cheese. It's fake cheese.
Yeah,
you can't make cheese out of nuts." Anyway, so let's see if Alex can pop back on here. He's had some techo difficulties. Anyway, I can keep going then.
Yeah.
I just want to say that, you guys in our entire history, you're the first band representing the first band that is in the same genre as Spinal Tap, heavy metal. We haven't had any
heavy metal guys on.
We have not had any heavy metal guys on. And so, like, there's a song in Spinal Tap, Heavy Duty, and he goes, Michael McKeon sings, "Just crank that volume till the point of pain. Why waste good music on a brain?" And then, of course, says, "Just want to make." Oh, and then, of course, it ends with it. "Just want to make some eardrums bleed." Right. So I'm wondering, you guys are, they're posing heavy metal in the dumbest form, right? They're saying that it's destroyed. We don't want it, just your brain destroyed. But you guys actually put a lot of thought into your music and your lyrics. I mean, The Stage is a concept album about AI from 2016. That's pretty ahead of time. And I just want to say, like, you've got a song called Sunny Disposition about nuclear warfare, and you've got Higher about a failed NASA test. There's some, and of course you've got the song about the philosopher that was killed in 1600, which the kids must really pick up on that reference.
Yeah, I mean, they get it immediately.
Yeah, Giordano Bruno.
Well, I can't even. Yeah. There you go, Giordano Bruno. Yeah.
There we go.
Roman Sky is the name of the song. Yeah.
So, how do you guys feel about like your place in you're not really typical. You're not the typical heavy metal band. You're kind of a metal punk band, right? But what do you think about the classification of your band in relation to Spinal Tap, and in terms of the world of bands that you play with and in your genre?
Man, I mean, I guess you could lump it in, especially some of our earlier stuff is definitely a little bit more metal. I think we've always classified ourselves as just a hard rock band. I mean, because we love, there's hard rock is like the bigger picture of the genre, right? And then you get into these little niches of metal and death metal and grunge, punk, whatever the case may be, but it all falls under the guides of hard rock. And I think we do that honestly just because we are inspired by all those other hard rock acts, and it brings it all together for us. Like we do have punk elements, we have metal elements sometimes too. We have hardcore elements. We have pop rock, classic rock elements. We just kind of run the gamut, and we have eclectic taste. So we are also pulling from pop music. I mean, Kanye West
and
production
country
was the stuff, and country. We do country songs. We just kind of run the gamut at this point. So it's kind of hard to pigeonhole us. And the honest truth is that we write what we love, what we think is good for us. Like at the end of the day, we're trying to accomplish something that we think is good. Then you put it out, and hopefully other people agree. But the goal is to write something that we enjoy, and we're pulling from our own inspirations, which are so vast between 5 different guys that I think that's how we get that. And it's hard for us to pigeonhole. I know everyone calls us. A lot of people would look at us as a heavy metal band, but I think that we're so much more than that. Like we're multifaceted, I guess.
I love that you brought that up, because I really was thinking about that last night. About the differentiation between heavy metal and hard rock, and you're posing it as hard rock is a bigger umbrella over a lot of different genres. Like when I think of hard rock, I think of Zeppelin, I think of Aerosmith, right? Mm-hmm. I think of those kind of bands, and it's almost like, and then heavy metal, obviously I think of something else. I think of the hair metal bands, right? So I think of and you guys aren't that at all. You're more like in the System of a Down area, right? And it's like, but it's interesting how like hard rock is it's almost like there's not that many bands that fit in what I consider hard rock, and it's kind of an esoteric classification in my mind. But it's interesting you put that as the umbrella, which heavy metal, like what other genres would be underneath the hard rock umbrella, would you think?
Well, I mean,
punk
like
wouldn't.
I said, certain like hardcore punk could be. I would consider like hardcore East Coast hardcore punk could be considered hard rock. I think. I think it's just like you said, you mentioned like hard rock. Those are classic bands, but and then is in that same breath is Sabbath then a typical heavy metal band, because they have a lot of Zeppelin sounds too. They came around the same era, and if yes. Specifically, they'd be heavy metal, but that's also hard rock to me too. Because I guess maybe that's just my interpretation as I'm saying it right now. But like my interpretation is that like hard rock is the bigger umbrella. You have heavy metal, you have glam rock, you have hair bands, which I guess is kind of like glam rock. You've got like the Nirvanas of the world are still hard rock to me. Foo Fighters is hard rock.
Yeah, alternative, right? That became like
alternative becomes the
buzzword for everything, right? That wasn't. And also like, Iggy to me, Iggy Pop and the New York Dolls are to me punk bands, but they're precede punk really. Right. Punk was like, I'll tell you a funny story. I went with my parents to the Silver Jubilee in England in 1977. And so I'm there when the Sex Pistols just got kicked off the radio. I'm there with all these incredible things, and I come away with one souvenir. And I was fascinated by it, but I wasn't a punk kid, right? I was a little young. But then I come away with one thing. Like I went to a record store. I could add anything from the punk era, right? I come away with Enjoy Yourself EP of the Jackson 5. I mean, like the worst Jackson 5 song. That's what I came away with. I didn't get anything else. I'm like,
I like the song. I mean, I'm a big Jackson 5 fan though. So
me too.
I think they could do no wrong. I mean, enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself.
It's a weird one, right? Like if you ask someone 5 songs from the Jackson 5, they probably wouldn't remember, Enjoy Yourself. I think that might be their last hit.
They're probably going for ABC is definitely going to be the first one.
ABC and I Want You. And then Dancing Machine. Dancing Machine is more this, yeah. Alex, you're back. Thanks for joining
sorry,
us.
guys.
Yeah.
My internet is acting up at the most convenient times.
Oh, that's what it does.
It does. I want to jump in with a question. So, Johnny, we've had obviously you play bass in Avenged Sevenfold. We've had a couple bass players from some of our hero bands as guests on the show. We had Tommy Stinson from The Replacements.
Oh, shit.
We had Brian Ritchie from Violent Femmes. And I'm wondering, have you, who are some of your musician heroes, and have you had Spinal Tap moments with any of them?
Man, I don't know about Spinal Tap moments, but I mean, I grew up, some of my favorite bassists early on were like Les Claypool, Matt Freeman, Duff McKagan, Cliff Burton, late great Cliff Burton. All guys that were kind of like in the genre that I play, I guess. Except for less. I mean, Primus is on a category all on its own, I think. So fucking freakish. I love it. But yeah, I mean, over the years, I grew up loving Steve Harris. As we talked at the top of this show,
right?
Got to hang with him a bit. He's really nice guy. I mean, I don't think I ever really put my foot in my mouth when I've been around him too often. So I don't know if I've Spinal Tap moments there. He might say differently, but I don't recall any of them. But and then touring with Metallica, getting to meet Robert Trujillo, who's a huge bassist. I mean, just a monster. Absolutely love him. And he played with our drummer Brooks Wackerman, who we brought in 2015. And they used to do Suicidal together and Infectious Grooves and all those fun things of the mid '90s. And just getting to talk to Robert, and befriending him was really cool. But again, I don't know that I had any crazy Spinal Tap moments. I do remember when I first met Robert, he came back in the dressing room at the Fillmore in San Francisco with James Hetfield and Lars. The three of them had came to one of our shows. We were on Waking the Fallen, so this must have been like 2004. So we're playing a little club, and they come to the show. They introduce themselves backstage in the green room. This is, a little club. We're all sharing one room. They come back into a room and say hi, and Robert's looking at my bass. I'm playing a Music Man at the time. I wasn't expecting him to be there, and I'm warming up, and he's like, "Oh, you got a Music Man? I really like this." I was like, "Yeah, man, I really like him too. It's pretty cool, right?" Yeah. And, then they leave, and me and my drummer at there you go, Music Man. There it is. Me and my late drummer Jimmy were huge Metallica fans, as all of us were. But like we found, like both of us like looked at each other after they shut the door in the room, and we're like, "Did that just fucking happen?" And then I just started playing. Like I got so excited, I just started playing this like crazy riff. And like he's like, "I've never seen you play that fast before." I'm like, "I'm jazzed up. Let's go play this fucking show. Like this is great." It was. I don't know if that's a Spinal Tap moment, but it's certainly a story we're sharing.
It's crazy. Like meeting your heroes is always it's always such a iffy proposition. I got to meet Elvis Costello a couple years ago, and
oh shit, that must be rad.
And I'm like, okay, do not say to him, "You're the reason why I started playing music." Just don't say that to him. Of course, that's exactly what I said to him. And he's like, "Oh, really? Is that good?" And he says, "Is that good or bad?" But I mean, it's like, it's so strange. Like I'm in LA and I there's celebrities falling like rain from the sky here. Although it doesn't rain. So that was a horrible analogy, but it's so funny. It's like the weird one, the ones that I kind of flip out over are like the real esoteric ones. Like, do you know the movie, the Coen Brothers movie, Miller's Crossing?
I'm not familiar, no.
It's a great movie, and there's like a character actor in there, and he has a performance, and I ran into him at the farmer's market, and I'm like, he's not a big star by any means, but that was like really exciting to me, and I like hugged him, and he's like, "Oh," I go, "You should have won an Oscar." It's like, but it's funny, the people that really set you off, and then when you meet people like that, it's like, yeah, just chill, right? Be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, I've befriended Robert over the years. Now he's a rad dude.
Sure.
I don't think I've ever told him that story. I don't think like when he or James or Lars. I don't think I've told any of those guys that story. Just like
you guys end up touring with Metallica, right?
Yeah, shortly after that, we did our first. We've done a couple tours with them. We did our first European tour with them. That was 2006. I know for a fact it was 2006. One of the first shows was Berlin, and they had us come up and do a Ramones cover of Commando with them on the stage. It was 6606, yeah, it was a surreal moment. We were playing in front of 50,000 Germans right before them, and once again we had to win them over during our 35-minute set, and we did a pretty good job. And then they brought us back out, and it was an incredible day in Berlin. I mean, we were up on stage with our heroes singing a Ramones cover. It was pretty sick, man. And then after that, we finished out the tour with them. We hopped on a few dates with Guns N' Roses at the same time while we were in Europe. It was with Bumblefoot as lead guitar, that and Brain on the drums. So it was that iteration of Guns N' Roses.
Was Stinson in the band for that iteration?
I don't recall. I
with
think
Guns,
so.
because he played with them for like 9 years, I think.
It's possible. I don't remember. This was a long time ago now. Forgive me for not remembering every detail, but because we were hopping on in between too. There was nights where we'd be playing with Metallica, and then Metallica would have days off, and Guns N' Roses would be in the another country over, so we'd go over there, play with Guns N' Roses, and come back. We were on dual tours in 2006.
That's insane. That's like, you must have been playing in front of millions of people. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, it was tough though. I mean, to make it work. I mean, we were used to headlining our own stuff, being out of our production. Even albeit it was smaller at the time in 06, but we were just starting to gain momentum in the States with songs like Backcountry and the release of City of Evil. So, we had established ourselves, and we were making some good money over in America. And then, like, to get main support for Metallica and Guns N' Roses at the time, you don't pass that up, obviously. But to make it work monetarily was very difficult. Like, we had our crew in with us in the bus. We were at Beat the Street. The bus had, like, I guess this is a Spinal Tap moment. Like, the entire time it had, like, a sulfur smell to it. There was a sulfur leak in the bus that we were traveling from.
Bizarre.
It was brutal. And then same thing with Iron Maiden a couple years later when we went back, where they're like, we told management and everywhere, like, we can't do that. That was brutal. That was grueling. And they made Iron Maiden work for us too. Like, but we had to be bare minimum once again. I mean, we were out there with line sixes before there was fractals and stuff. That's how like minimalistic we had to go with our back line. And yeah, that one was brutal. We almost quit. There was several of us that almost quit at the end of the Iron Maiden tour because we had to drive our buses in between. They're flying their fucking private, like, I mean, you got Bruce Dickinson literally flying to each fucking country that they're doing with days off in between. They're selling out stadiums. It's a different level for them. But we have to drive to those places, and it's Europe. If anyone's traveled, especially back then in 2007 or 8, whenever it was, you get to these towns in between the big cities where you're playing the shows, and they're closed, like, for, like, times, and you're in a bus, and you're just trying to fucking find a meal, and everything's closed in the middle of the afternoon for, their afternoon breaks and stuff. And it was like, it was wild. It was really hard. We all got mad at each other. Almost a couple of us booked a couple of flights home and then never actually got on them. Our tour manager at the time
really
got us to come back on it. It was just a time where it was just tough. We were towards the end of the cycle too. And it was just a grueling touring. So we were just, but as things work out, it helped us out. I mean, the next time after that, we went back after doing that Iron Maiden thing on our own for Europe, and we were in arenas. So it worked out. I mean, it was grueling, but it worked out.
We had Carrie Brownstein and Corin Tucker from Slater-Kinney on the show, and Carrie said the glamour and the squalor live side by side on the road, and that when you mentioned a sulfur smell that you had to live with on your bus, which is essentially your home.
Oh yeah, we were worried for our guitar player at one point because he was the closest one to the smell. He had accidentally picked that bunk, and we were like, dude, he's gonna pass out back there. You can't just keep breathing that in.
Well, speaking of like how headliners treat the opening bands, we were just interviewing someone. Who was it, Alex? They opened for U2, and like all of a sudden Bono said, "Hey, why don't you just
the Lumineers?"
The Lumineers, and then like this is the beginning, and Bono said, "Hey, why don't you guys come on the plane with us?" And so all of a sudden they're on this plane with like all these A-list people, and Bono is like the stewardess. He's like making sure everyone's comfortable, everyone's got drinks and everything. Awesome. It was really cool.
I love hearing that. And for the record, it wasn't Iron Maiden's fault, by the way. Like, they were sweet. They were great to us. Guns N' Roses as well, all the guys in there, Metallica, all that time, like from 2005, 2010, those bands that took us out, like all the admiration for what they were doing for us. And as I said, bringing us up on stage when we were like nobody in Berlin for Metallica, you know, hanging. They threw some parties. Iron Maiden did. They threw some parties after a couple shows. That was really fun. Yeah, man, they were great to us. All great to us.
That's neat.
Listen, if they ask me to open for them, fuck it. I'm not doing it. I'll go with some other Maiden, like Bronze Maiden, but fuck Iron Maiden.
But not Iron. Can't
not
do
Iron. No way.
Johnny, I wanted to ask you about, I heard the great Drinks with Johnny episode. I think you're one of your most recent with Dave Ellefson from Megadeth.
Yeah.
And first of all, it was so cool to hear. I mean, he's from Minnesota, grew up on a farm. You know, again, he's an upper Midwesterner like Alan and me. So just hearing him talk was just like talking to someone we would have grown up with. How he loves and was influenced by Kiss and Cheap Trick and just the bands that Alan and I grew up loving. Alan, actually, I don't know if you loved Kiss growing up, but I did.
I liked them. I was fond.
I had every album up through Alive 2. So when Dave was talking about literally the back album cover of Alive 2 and looking at the seated crowd, I'm like, I could totally picture what he was talking about. So that was so cool. And he told this hilarious story about having this nice apartment in LA. He said, I grew up in a good family. So, we had furniture in our house. So he had like a couch and he had dishes in the cupboard in his LA apartment. Right. And he mentioned having Slash and Steve Adler from Guns N' Roses come over before they started making, money from Appetite for Destruction, stuff like that. And just being blown away that he actually had dishes, right? And a place to sit. And so, my question for you is, have you ever gone to a fellow musician's place and been blown away either by the high life or the low life attributes of their living conditions?
I mean, there's a couple that come to mind that I've actually gone to their houses, both of them being drummers, Mike Portnoy and Vinnie Paul, late great Vinnie Paul. I'm trying to remember Vinnie Paul's house. When I first went there, I was kind of blown away. I was like, this was a place out in the Dallas suburbs, just outside of there. Nice big house. He's got game rooms. I mean, everything's like just kind of spread out perfectly for entertaining at all times. Like, and it's just like, it's a free for all. Like he used to have barbecues for every band that would come through that he was friends with. He would just like, hey, before your show or if you have a day off, come over to the house. And he's great with hospitality. And I just remember thinking like, this is the way to do it. Like this, when I get my house, I was in my early 20s and I was like, when I get a house, I'm going to do it like this, And that was a really cool moment. He was just such a sweetheart. Absolutely loved him. And then Mike Portnoy was in Pennsylvania, just outside of the city of New York City. He's like 40-minute drive or whatever. And I remember going over to his house. This was after I already had my house and stuff. And I was like, oh, he's got a basement. In Southern California, we don't have basements. And in his basement, he had a rad movie theater. And then like off to the side, there was a separate room where his drum room with all of his drums in there. And then there was even a third room. This is all in one basement level where he had all of his memorabilia and records and everything. And I mean, it was an entire room of this shit. And I was like, that's why you're an encyclopedia of music knowledge. Like he just knows everything about music. It's insane. But yeah, that was a really cool spot too. I was like, dude, no wonder you live out here. You don't have to go anywhere. You got this nice pool. You got a movie theater downstairs. I was like, that's the way to do it. And then shortly after, I did a remodel of my house and built my own bar and movie room upstairs because I can't go below, so I had to do the same thing upstairs. So, yeah, that was I took some inspiration from a couple of those guys.
That's cool. I feel like Elfson said that Portnoy's house is kind of a mashup of Tower Records and Guitar Center.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's pretty unique, man. It's a cool place.
But guys, you don't need to be in the music business to have a cool theater. Like the nicest movie theater, home theater I ever experienced was my brother-in-law's in-laws in Iowa, and they're like, they have a nutrient for cattle, and they made so much money off of that they had like basically like a Lemley theater in their next to the farm. It was the most amazing theater I ever saw. So,
oh yeah, and I've heard Snoop Dogg's theater is amazing too. He's got a compound that I forget who I was talking to. They went and did a showing of their movie there. Now I can't remember who it was. Someone I think that I met through the podcast or the Drinks with Johnny podcast did a premiere there at his compound. And I heard it was like amazing. It was just like passed out a bunch of joints, a bunch of alcohol, and like had his private theater. It was just like, yeah. He introduced the film and stuff, and like it was. I guess it was a wild time, but like, yeah, to your point, like it doesn't matter where you got the money from. You build a movie theater when you get it. You gotta have your own movie theater when you get that money. You get paid, get yourself a movie theater.
But I've told the story on this show before that when I was a tour manager and I was out with the Chills from New Zealand, one of their managers was Madonna's sister, Melanie.
right.
And so we got to go up to Madonna's house in the Hollywood Hills and swim in her pool. She wasn't home. But Melanie had the keys. So we were hanging out there, and this was before cell phones. And so I was sitting around in Madonna's living room, and there was a phone there, and I was thinking to myself, is there a way that I could discreetly pick up this phone and call my parents back in Wisconsin and say, I'm calling you from Madonna's phone? But that would have been on Madonna's long distance bill, and I didn't want to get.
You don't want to get. Yeah, and I'm sure she's looking at every itemized line.
That's how people. That's how rich people get rich. They check their credit card statements. I got a question for you, Johnny. So, in Spinal Tap, they have an album, "Smell the Glove," and the label won't go with it, and it's very controversial. But you guys,
you should have seen the cover that they wanted to put on it, though.
right. So that's Ian Stead. Yes. Yeah. Well, but on your album, Life Is But a Dream, you worked around it. You have multiple album covers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. Yeah. How did that come about? And how do you manage that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the way that you distribute physical copies these days, right? You give special things to it so that there's a value in purchasing a physical copy rather than going to a Spotify or Apple and streaming it. And we consciously worked with Wes Lang on this, amazing artist that we befriended through some mutual friends, got in contact. He was down. He made some incredible artwork that we both use for merchandise and the album artwork, and we just did variations of it. I mean, he did a piece of art for every song on the album, and it was fucking awesome. Like, I mean, we went into his warehouse where he does everything, so we got to see the full sizes of these things. I mean, they're big canvases that he was painting, and it was just so incredible that and there were so many rad variations that we could have even used that we were like, well, these are great too, so let's do different prints of the same thing too. So like that's why our vinyls have different colorations and stuff like that. But yeah, he came up with concepts for each song pretty much, and different variations of our Death Bat and the Grim Reaper guy coming in and everything. So I mean, it really was just a collaboration that kind of happened for the right reason, and we love the art, so we're going to use it. I guess is what it comes down to.
Well, it's great added value, as you said. Like you have to encourage people to buy physical copies these days. I still have to this day. I have the Talking Heads. What's that album? Speaking in Tongues, and Robert Rauschenberg did the design for it, and it's really cool. It's got like as you turn the whole sleeve actually interacts with the vinyl itself, and as you turn the record, it changes the picture.
That's awesome.
And it'd be worth a lot of money if I knew where it was, because I packed it away like 30 years ago. It's in a box somewhere.
You'll find You'll find it
with my Lenny Bruce autograph and my Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron autograph.
Well, the
Hank Aaron autograph. That's no joke.
With me, I picture with me.
The
and
rats
Hank
in your attic have probably gotten to that already too.
Yeah, they got to my tuxedo last week. The rats in my attic and ate the shoulder off. But it was a great Halloween costume, so that worked.
Did you clean it first, or did you leave the
No,
wrapper on it?
not for Halloween. I'm not gonna.
That's disgusting, man.
It's got pocket full of rat shit in it. Yeah.
That's how the plague started, man. You got to be careful with that
You're
shit.
right. I just thought it was a bruise, but it's actually the plague.
Right.
Horrible.
Right.
Well, Alex will hate me because I always bring up the Beatles. And
let me ask you about you.
What? Wait, I beat you to it. See, we have this thing if we ever but neither of us used it that time. Anyways,
but hold on. But before you wait, Alan, hold on, please, just a second though, because here's the thing. I want to. We can come back to the Beatles, but Johnny mentioned the Grim Reaper on the album art, and I have a question about that. So Johnny, I was a fan of Motley Crue in the Shout the Devil era. And in fact, my high school talent show band played Red Hot at the Catholic boys' school where I went. And
Rad.
So I'm familiar with sort of the rebelliousness of the references to the devil, and of course Motley Crue had the pentagram and all that kind of stuff. So what is kind of what's the backstory as you understand it, is kind of the use of the skulls? In fact, Avenged Sevenfold, you have the skull with the bat wings as kind of your logo. So what's kind of behind that, A, and B, what's the most kind of comical portrayal you've ever seen of bands using that the kind of that death imagery?
Oh man. Well, we go back to the precipice of our death bat. That's what we call the skull with the bat wings. It's been dubbed the death bat. I mean, that was branding as a band, just as a garage punk rock band that when we were very first starting out. I wasn't even there for it, but I know the story well. So basically, we idolized bands like the Misfits, Iron Maiden, for their imagery and their artwork. And because, I mean, everyone might not know a bunch of Misfit songs, but they know when they see the ghoul mask. They know when they see that's Misfits. And we wanted that. We wanted a logo that you knew what it represented without any words around it. So that's why we came up with the death bat with our late great friend Micah Montague. The guys came up with the idea, pitched it to him. He wrote a sketch with a pencil right there on a piece of paper, and that's how the death bat was made. I think it might have gone through a couple iterations. Don't quote me on that, but I mean, it was pretty quickly decided that was the original death bat would be our logo that could speak on its own. We did have a funny iteration of the death bat for ourselves that would be more of a Spinal Tap moment. We were enjoying the success of City of Evil, and we did a co-headlining tour with Coheed and Cambria. It was really fun, and we wanted to up our production for the first time. So we had what was supposed to be a really badass steel death bat, skull with the bat wings, and it was going to pop up at a certain point of the show, and its wings were going to go, and it was going to be this epic thing. It's similar to what happens in Spinal Tap, right? It didn't work out so well. Let's put it that way. Sometimes it did, and it was kind of cool, but like more often than not, it was on a hydraulic system that had to have you have to cover up the hydraulic with black curtains so you can't see that part, so it looks like it's floating. And I mean, this thing, when we got it there, we showed up to the first show, and we just looked at it, we're like, I mean, it's kind of cool, but it also looks really fucking cheesy. We're like, all right, we're going to go with it. I mean, we paid for this fucking thing to get made. So, I mean, sometimes it just wouldn't rise. The wings wouldn't do anything. It would just be sitting there, and we're like, yep, that's our prop for the night. And, it was pretty funny. I mean, and the crew members, we thought it was all cool. We're in the early 20s. We're a hard rock, heavy metal band. We're doing some kick-ass things. It's going to look badass. And they named it Fluffy. And I was like, God damn it.
That is
so that was a funny one. I could poke fun at our own logo. I don't know imagery from other bands. I don't want to necessarily speak on too much, just because everyone's got their own thing.
Fair enough. Do you know CJ Vanston by any chance? He's also an LA guy. He is the music director for Spinal Tap. And Alan, didn't he tell us a funny story about their performing with them somewhere. Maybe it was even in Milwaukee, and their big skull with the horns got stuck sideways or backwards or something like that. And he had to like physically crank it around to face the right direction on stage.
Yeah, and it's like what's the Spinal? Is it Rock and Roll Creation where Derek Smalls gets stuck in the placenta?
Yeah, he gets stuck in the. I don't recall. I was just so you guys sent over stuff, which I appreciate, and I watched. Of course, I've seen Spinal Tap many times over. Sure. Anyone, I think, over the age of 30 that's done any kind of band traveling has seen that movie and understands it and in all of its brilliance. But I got through half of it last night before. And I did see that scene, so I don't remember exactly but where he gets stuck in the placenta is fucking
I think it's Rock and Roll Creation, which of course kind of reminds me of you guys because you have biblical overtones. Your name is that's out of the Bible, right? That's a reference to the Bible.
It's a reference to the vengeance of Cain and Abel. It comes around in that story. It was really kind of just something that we picked out and sounded good,
Got it. Well, so they have Rock and Roll Recreation, and their lyrics in that is "'Twas a rock and roll creation, 'twas a terrible big bang, 'twas the ultimate mutation. Ying was searching for his yang, and he looked and he saw that it was good." So try to beat those biblical references.
No, I won't even bother trying. They already did it perfect.
You can't do it.
No, can't.
Well,
can't do
it. It's a movie though.
Alan, ask Johnny the question that we ask every guest, given this is what we're talking about.
Yes. So since you just saw half of it yesterday, what was your favorite scene in Spinal Tap that you remember or saw?
Dude, obviously you guys asked this question because there's so many to choose from. Like every scene has something that is so precious and beautiful about it. The one that stood out, there was two that stood out last night, so I'll kind of cheat and give you two. One of them was a little silly just for me as a bassist when they are playing a song and it's all bass. I can't remember. I think it might have been heavy duty.
That's Big Bottom.
Big Bottom. That's right.
He's got a double neck bass.
Double neck bass. Everyone's on bass, and I'm like, and it's just like it's that little subtlety that like if you're a musician, you get. Most people would probably see that.
Yes.
And go, not even think anything of it. But yeah, that was a funny moment. And then, what I really loved, and it's fucking right off the bat, pretty much in the movie. Is the narrator is asking, or the interviewer is asking him questions, and then he starts going like reading them back their reviews from the press. It's kind of like mean tweets, like
sure,
like that we get now, and like the things that they were saying to him. This is just 2 words: shit sandwich. And they're like, they got us on that one. It's so good. Oh no, it wasn't that one. He's like, one of them. He's like, oh, they got us good on that one. And I've been in that position so many times. So I'm like,
all right. So tell us.
Reviews.
Do you have a review that comes to mind that always sticks in your craw, or it's so bad it's funny?
I wish I did. I should have tried to think of one or brought one up. But I mean, there's been several over the years, and most of it becomes white noise. You don't even really pay attention to it, right? But every now and then you get a good journalist who gets you good, and you're like, that was fucking funny. That was good. I can't. You're right, man. That was rad. That was a good analogy. And it's happened over the years. I don't have a specific one that I could point to off the top of my head right now, but certainly, you get the good reviews, the bad reviews, and then you get the awesome reviews. And
but you always remember the bad reviews, right? Like I remember the one review I remember that was, and it was meant negatively, was that I was in a band called Women's Liberace, and the reviewer said, the singer sounds suspiciously like Billy Joel. And I'm like, well, I like Billy Joel a little.
Yeah.
It's not, but I know
that was meant to be a knock. I mean,
that was meant to be a knock. That's
not a very good knock. That's not a very good knock.
But if they meant it as a knock, then you have to defend yourself. It's horrible. But I want to ask you another question, because you have another very similar thing to Spinal Tap, is that in Spinal Tap they have a problem with their record label. You got sued in 2016 for trying to leave Warner Brothers because all the execs who brought you in left.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, man.
So what?
Yeah, it was.
Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was there was a shifting of the guard at Warner Music at the time. When we signed in 2004, I believe it was, they started, them and DreamWorks and a few other people were coming out to Warped Tour in 2003, towards the end of our Warped Tour, was we were getting a buzz off of that. And labels were coming out and, pitching us. and Warner was the one at the time. We had Tom Wally was running things there.
Right.
We had friends of ours that were, Andy Oliphant, that were still there as our co A&R and worked very closely with us, and then the late Craig Aronson was our main dude there, and between the three of them, and then of course the cast of Xavier. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting a bunch of names. There was a good crew that was really understood this band, and that's why we went with them. It wasn't an issue of money or anything like that. Everything was pretty much apples to apples. But this was the crew that we wanted to go with. We felt that they had the right team, and over the years, slowly but surely, it started dissipating, and there was one familiar face left, and we were like, we don't have a lot of confidence that you guys are getting what our purpose is and what we do at the time. And I mean, again, this is 2016. Things have changed again. But yeah, at the time, the people who were there we weren't vibing with, and our lawyers brought up a point that in California, we were past the 7-year clause. We technically had one more album, but we were under with the 7-year clause, blah, 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 blah. Legal shit went back and forth. I don't know how much I could talk about that, but legal shit went back and forth. We ended up actually releasing the stage on Capitol Records, and then, under still litigations at certain points. And then, we came back to Warner Music for this album. Basically, at the end of the last one, they showed us that they gave us a little bit more confidence in new management over there and new leadership. And we worked out the details, and we're back with them and to release Life is But a Dream.
Yeah, that is so nuts. I mean, it's just like, a lot of people, the public thinks you get signed to a major label and you're like set, right? And it's just, it's smooth sailing, and that's...
and in theory, it could have been, but there was a lot of changeover that happened in the industry. It was just bad timing for the industry in general. And now with streaming and everything, it's hard to decide like what a big label is doing for you now. Like what's the payoff? And you have to, as a new musician, I would say, like bands coming up and other artists coming up, you have to really weigh out your options now, because you have more options than just going to a major label is the case. And we're constantly, we fancy ourselves entrepreneurials as well as musicians, and we're constantly trying to better our situations and make sure that we're making the right decisions for our career, for our families, for everything. And in that, you got to be open to these new possibilities and find ways to utilize them for yourself. And I think that's what it was. We were experimenting. We were trying to, we were fed up. We didn't feel like we had a lot of confidence there. So we made the decision, and then we came back, I guess. So it all worked out.
Well,
but
right.
It's interesting because I think we've had several guests, Alex, that there are people supporting them at the label left, and then they get dumped, right? You guys actually they've thought enough of you to keep you on.
It's like when your girlfriend's about to break up with you, you break up first,
Right.
No, it really wasn't the case. Like it was fine. It was just it was more of expanding. We wanted to see what else was out there in a lot of respects too.
Well, I will say, in the small world department, my wife, we used to live in LA, and my wife actually worked with Andy Oliphant's wife.
Oh,
and, yeah.
Robin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Donnie, yeah.
Dude, I love the Oliphants. They're such good people. Like Matt and Timothy as well. But great people, great family.
Yeah.
Their parents, they came out when we released Nightmare at the release party. Sweet family.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Shout out to the Oliphants for sure.
Well, speaking of your album, The Stage on Capitol, you guys did a special concert on the roof of the iconic Capitol Records building,
right,
correct, in Hollywood. That sounds incredible and epic, and like an absolute perfect slow pitch across the center of the plate for Spinal Tap moments. Anything weird happened there?
I wouldn't say anything weird. It went really good. I mean, and that was, for all intents and purposes, 2016. It was the first live stream with using droids, drones.
Drones, yeah.
I went Star Wars on it. Drones. We had like a bunch of drones filming it. It was an actual live stream, and we had graphics as well. So it was like one of the first times that we were doing that. Obviously, in 2020, a lot of artists shifted and actually did the same thing out of necessity. But at the time, we did it because we thought it was cool. We're going to use this technology. We're on top of Capitol Records, this iconic fucking building. We've been in. Before we did the signing with them, we were at Capitol Records every once in a while doing strings. I mean, their room B in the studio down there is fucking incredible for strings with all the cabinets and stuff. The acoustics that they built for it. So we'd been there, a few times. But I mean, to actually go through the building, not just go straight to the studio space, is incredible. See all the iconic records, Beach Boys, all these things that have come through there, and it was just really cool. And then going up on the roof, I wouldn't say there's a Spinal Tap moment, but a little insight is I'm terrified of heights. I don't do well. I get up on a ladder and I get shaky. And we were up there and I was like, you can't put me any closer to that wall. I won't do it. If I can look down and see the crowd down there, I'm going to freak out. So I mean, we got through it. I mean, with the technology that we were doing and everything and the way it was set up, we weren't moving very much. We were kind of pretty stationary in our spots for the filming of everything. So it was safe. But I was like, this is really high. I don't like this. So,
well, you closed an important loop because obviously the Beatles were signed by Capitol originally, right? Mm-hmm. And they didn't perform on Capitol's roof. They performed on Abbey Road on Apple's roof, right? So you guys closed the loop with the Beatles. You guys are inextricably linked for all eternity now.
Hey, from your mouth, man. I love
right.
it. That's right. I'll take it. You put us anywhere near the fucking Beatles, I'll take it. You put us outside in the parking lot, we'll fucking take it. You know what I mean?
All right, I gotta tell something you love. So we were signed to a small label. I had a band called the Falling Wallendas, which in another category, like you guys had Cirque du Soleil do your live show for the stage, right? They were part of your live act.
There was yes and no. It was when we were designing everything. There were one of the production people over there had done Cirque du Soleil stuff as well. So they were. It was part of the design and light show and stuff like that. It was more part of that at the early stages. It wasn't like we had Cirque du Soleil what are they called? Acrobats. Yeah, thank you. Acrobats flying around on stage. That's what a lot of people might think if you just left it at that.
Okay, all right, I was wrong.
But we had screens and stuff, and Cirque du Soleil obviously over the years has done an amazing job of utilizing screen content, and they helped a lot with that.
Well, my band was called the Falling Wallendas, so that's why I brought that up. We were kind of a circus kind of act, so I thought there was a connection there, a little stronger than I thought. But what do I want to say? Shoot. Okay, Spinal Tap drummers. You guys have had a lot of drummers like Spinal Tap. Did you find any like? Obviously, it's some of it tragic, like Spinal Tap, right? But did you find any when you're watching that? Does that bring any memories back or connections back? Because you had at least 4 drummers, correct?
We've had, we had the Rev, and we had Portnoy for a minute, and Aaron, and now Brooke. So 4. I mean, I guess maybe just because it's very different circumstances. Like I didn't even think about that when I'm watching Spinal Tap,
right?
Because I mean, it's tragic though. I mean, it's a tragic story, really. I mean, we're best friends. We all grew up on Huntington Beach together. Like we've known each other, been friends, or at least friendly with each other, living in proximity with each other from age 2nd grade, like really early on. We're getting in trouble together, doing, a lot of us were really close friends. Before we even started the band, Jimmy was one of those guys, and was a founding member with Matt and Zach, and then they brought in Brian later, went through a few bassists. I came in a little bit later than that. And then, in 2010, he passed, and it wasn't devastating for the business of Avenged Sevenfold. It was devastating for the family. That is Avenged Sevenfold. The fans are part of that family. His family, Jimmy's family, our families, our brotherhood together. So when he passed, I mean, we thought we were done. we had finished writing this record, Nightmare. It was, 95% finished. And we were getting ready to go into the studio to start pre-production 2 weeks after this, we were slotted to. And then he passed and everything changed. We had a lot of decisions to make at a really young age about stuff that we couldn't really comprehend, because up until that point, you think of yourself as really immortal. Like you don't think you're gonna die or anything like that, or anyone close to you that's that close to you is gonna die. And then when it happens, it's crazy. And then now that I'm about to be 39 here tomorrow, I'm thinking back of my brother who passed when he was 28. I'm like, he didn't even get a chance to live, man. Like that's, he didn't have kids, was young, way too fucking young. And, what I've learned from then to now is like a whole other lifetime. I feel like a different person. Right. And he didn't get to experience that. So all that was so tragic. And then, we weren't sure we were going to continue on as a band. We weren't sure we were going to record that record. And then a couple weeks go by, outpour from fans, and of course, again, Jimmy's family asked us to make sure that we finished this last piece of music that he wrote with us. To be back in the studio with Mike Portnoy, who came in, filled in. We're like, big shoes to fill, but like he had already demoed. Jimmy had demoed a lot of the drums, so he knew what it was going to be. He hadn't fine tuned a couple things, so Mike stepped in and fine tuned a couple of things with his style, but trying to do it justice. He came in, looked at us and said, I know this is tough for you guys. I want to be your vessel. You tell me what to play. And that's what we did with him. And then we weren't sure we were going to go on the road either. Like, we're just finishing this music. We'll get it out. That'll be the end of it. And then again, Outpour came and it helped us strap our boots on. And Mike was like, I'd love to play live with you guys if you guys would do it. So we ended up starting touring with him. And then that was always going to be a temporary thing. He was with Dream Theater at the time. And then he quit Dream Theater while he was on the road with us, which was a wild thing. We were like, whoa, dude, I didn't know you were going to do that. But now he's back. Now he's back with Dream Theater. And
right.
Everything's back the way it should be. Everything's back the way it should be. He is Dream Theater with John and all those guys. Dream Theater needs Portnoy again, I think. But yeah, and then we brought in Aaron, who was just a young, like kind of nobody. No one had really heard of him, but an incredible drummer that we found from our actual drum tech in the studio. He came in and he nailed all the parts, was great, did great on Hail to the King, but when it came to the stage, we wanted to go differently in a creative way. And there was Brooks, a knight in shining armor, ready to leave Bad Religion apparently at the time, and was ready to venture out. He wanted to do more than the punk drums, I guess, he wanted to expand his horizons, and we were ready at the right time, so we got with him. So, I mean, all that is probably why that very long story I just gave you to your question is probably why I don't associate that.
No, but I think you've got to. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's just from two historic examples, right? I mean, you guys came to, as you said, as young guys, you kind of came to all these crossroads, and by an alchemistic mix of elements, you clearly took the right fork in the road at each point. And you think about two epic bands, right? Zeppelin, when John Bonham died, that was the end of the band.
Right.
And
we thought we referenced them amongst ourselves. We're like, Zeppelin and keep going. Like that's,
And the Who, when Keith Moon died, they did, they got a guy from another classic band, from the Faces, right? And Kenny Jones, and they kept going, and they're still playing. I think they're still gigging to this day.
Yeah,
even though I saw them on their first farewell tour back in '82 as my first concert.
I just love that. I love the first farewell tours. Those are so fucking good.
My next band is going to start out with our farewell tour. That's going to be our first gig. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, it's not a bad idea. Yeah. Now, honestly, like everyone's, hindsight of these bands who do several farewell tours, hindsight, you look back and you're like, oh, that was a money play. They knew it the whole time. I tend to think with a positive attitude, and I think I could put myself in those shoes. I'm sure most of the time they really believed it was going to be their last tour, Probably. And then years go by and you're sitting. I mean, I just experienced it. We were off for 6 years. We weren't like disbanded or anything, but we were working on a record and things got in the way, and so we were home for almost 6 years in between touring. longest I've ever done at home. And I could attest, dude, after you're home for a while, you want to get the fuck back out there. And like, I could understand for the right price, someone comes in and says, hey, I know you guys did your farewell tour, but I can get you X amount of dollars for this one tour. And you've been home for 5-6 years. Like, you definitely consider it at the very least. You know what I mean? So
sometimes the money too, you know, like look, the Talking Heads, they really did not get along. I mean, if they're, they were really like Tina and Jerry Harrison were really mad at David Byrne, and I don't think they ever. And now they finally did it. So there must have been, I don't know if it was
people grow too.
Yeah,
I mean, people grow too. And when you're you guys have been on tours and stuff, you tour managing and been in bands, like there's butting head moments, and sometimes they get old and you get over it, and then but you go away from it for a while. You split and you grow as people. You could come back and find a common ground for sure. And I think that's more. Yes, you could point to the money, and of course that's true. You're getting more money when you've gone away. Like the supply and demand comes back. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, I guess. So those guarantees do essentially go up. However, I don't think there's enough money for those people to switch around and come back after a farewell tour to really make sense, unless they were grown as people and kind of figured some shit out.
Well, you know, you can always use another Aston Martin in the garage, right?
There is that.
Yeah, there's
like
that.
I said, I'm not dismissing it entirely. Okay.
Well, you know,
it plays a factor.
You know, the Pixies, right? So, I know Joey Santiago, and they got back after, I don't know, over a decade, and they were more popular than ever. And it was like they were much more popular because then they the kids in this generation knew that Cobain loved them and that all these bands influenced them, and they wanted to see them, but they were much more popular reforming than they were in their original incarnation, which is pretty interesting.
No, and that happens more often than not. I mean, My Chemical Romance just came back and did their stuff, and that was after a decade of a hiatus, and when they came back, they were bigger. They were playing, they played 5 nights at the Forum here in LA, sold out at all 5. I don't even know if in their heyday of Black Parade they could have done that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And that was massive, but I don't know. I guess we'll never know. But I feel like this was a bigger look for them, and I think that happens. Like I said, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and with the internet, with every way that it's easy to discover in so many ways, music. You know what I mean? Like there's new generations that are, our music will live past us. As artists, like the music that we create and record and put out there will be there long after we're off this fucking planet. And because it lives there, it's like a catalog that keeps growing. You're getting more and more people who are getting born and getting introduced to it. So you have a bigger, if you stick around long enough, your fan base will naturally grow just because there's more people to discover it over time.
I'm hoping that my band's fan base, like over the next 34 years, hits triple digits. That's what I'm kind of hoping. But it's going to happen. I know it.
Yeah, no, it will. It will. Yeah. And you'll be ready for that. You'll be ready for that farewell.
I'll be ready for my farewell tour. Then. Yeah.
So let's do 2 more things with Johnny, and then we'll take our set break. Does that sound okay? And shift gears to drinks with Johnny. So Johnny, it's always fun for us sometimes to go to the fans and ask them what questions they'd like us to ask. So I went on to Reddit, and the Avenged Sevenfold subreddit is pretty active.
Okay.
And one of the things that they seem to like to do there is post these set lists, right? That's a kind of an ongoing activity. So Dr. Munchies said, ask Johnny if the band would ever consider doing a fan-chosen set list.
I mean, never say never, but I mean, I don't see it happening anytime soon. I'm just being honest. I mean, like I appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate the fan base, and I appreciate their their enthusiasm for everything. I mean, we're not. I mean, I know it's cliche, but it's true. Some things are cliche for a reason, but you know, they're absolutely the only reason why we're still able to do this. Well, I'm able to be here talking to you guys in front of my bar. You know, like it's all for them and all thanks to them. But I do think because of the ignorance in it, and I mean that in a nice way, like the true definition. You haven't toured, you haven't put together a set list ever, probably in your lives, but you're going to put together our set list. And I think it's awesome. I think it would be really fun to do. It would be very fun. So that's why I say never. But I will say we take a lot of time and effort in putting the right set list together. It's not like we're just like, oh, we want to play this tonight. Like there's a lot of thought, and because you want to please as many people as you can and keep it interesting for us on stage. As soon as we're not interested in it anymore, you'll be able to tell. The fans will be able to tell. It won't be the fun party that we like, the environment that we like to bring to our live show. So there's a lot of factors that you have to bring in to get a 2-hour set like the right way. And when you're going to have these high moments and when it's going to come back down, it's not. I know it might seem arbitrary, but it's not. It's very methodical the way that we pick our set list. So that's why I would say never say never.
Yeah, that's fair.
But not anytime soon.
But never.
But you know, nah. You know, actually, but you know what's funny? I only grabbed that one line from what Dr. Munchie said, but he actually suggested, he or she suggested this actually methodical process for determining what that set list would be. So it was kind of it was kind of interesting.
Well, maybe I spoke too soon then. Maybe I spoke too
soon.
I would love to not have to have those discussions with my bandmates on set.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I'll bet.
Just send me the homework. Let's go.
I wouldn't let a guy named Dr. Munchies pick the beverages in the backstage area. Forget it. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Anyway, I'll send it to you, Johnny, just because you might think it's interesting.
Absolutely.
All right. One more from Reddit. X21. Well, actually, let me do a little preface on this. So it's been pretty extraordinary the number of times that just serendipitously, spontaneously, stories about having to use the restroom, having to try and figure out how to take a dump on the road have come up in our conversations.
Naturally.
And especially when bands are traveling, you know, doing the club circuit and stuff. It's a lot. It's you know, it can be challenging, surprisingly challenging. So X21 said, ask him about the blowout he had after eating at the Shed in Biloxi, Mississippi that caused him to be late to the stage. Does that ring a bell?
I'm trying to think.
That's why you don't let your fans plan your set list.
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, I'd fully admit it if it happened. I'm trying to think. I don't.
Come on, a good-looking guy like that never happened to you. Look like Justin. You look like Justin Theroux. Does anyone ever tell you that?
No, I've never heard that. But
he's a very handsome actor. Yes, so I'm sure that never happened to you.
Oh, I thought you
honestly,
were.
I just don't remember. Maybe not
funny.
the Shed, but I will. I mean, early.
I think you remember.
We were in Manchester one time. I mean, I think this is when we played a double header. We played like the club during the day because it needed to be under 21, and then at night it was over 21, and we did a second show. So we did double header there, and I think it was the second show of the night. At any rate, I was like warming up, and I went, and we were about to go on stage, and I was like doing my jumping jacks, trying to loosen up, whatever the case may be at the time.
Loosen
and
up.
I was like, oh, it's coming, and I did.
Too loose.
Yeah.
Too loose.
Everyone was laughing at my bandmates were like, dude, we gotta go on stage. And this is a time like when you needed to be prompt and everything like that. Like now, not to sound like we're dicks or anything, we still like to be prompt, but like things happen, you're like a couple minutes late, you know, you're the headliner, it's not that big of a deal. But you know, at that time it was kind of a big deal. They were giving me shit and I was taking one.
So to speak.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah, that was in Manchester. I don't remember the Biloxi one. I don't remember a blowout like that.
The blowout in Biloxi. Okay, well that will just
it might have been. The only thing I can think of is we did used to do these videos that we'd play on the screen when the main support band would finish, the screens would start to turn on a little bit for us. And we did a countdown. And like after a certain point in the countdown, like a clock is counting down to Avenged Sevenfold in the stage, we would record these videos during the day, addressing the fans and saying, we're going to be on in 5 minutes or something like that. And we do these little skits. And one of the skits I do recall might have been like me on the shitter. So they might have thought it was like a real thing.
I think I saw that actually. I saw that one.
That's the only thing I can think of actually.
Yeah.
And we did it. Yeah, those were fun, man. We did.
Yeah.
Those were so fun to make. We did a bunch of different ones. And it was.
It's a Justin Thoreau worthy performance.
Yeah.
I do fancy. I do think all my performances from those videos were pretty good. For being an untrained actor, I think with a little bit of training, I think I could do it. I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, when I heard the Shed in Biloxi, I thought maybe you'd gotten some bad gumbo or something like that. But who knows? Again, we'll never know for sure.
I hate scatological stories, but I remember I was playing in Chicago, and there's a place called Aranda's, which was a Mexican fast food place that Everett Lappy went to, and I always took a nap before I played, and so after a sound check, I went there and I got that, and I shit the bed when I was sleeping, and then it was what a horrible show. I had to get up and play, and I was like anemic by the end. I was in such bad shape, so I never ate before a show again after that.
Oh, dude, I've had some stuff on stage, some stomach issues on stage. I puked on stage in Japan one of the times. I was deathly sick, and we went out there, and I drink on stage. Like that's like my thing. Like I start having drinks when I'm playing on stage. I get through a few songs, I start having
cocktails.
Yeah, I mean, usually not cocktails. Maybe sometimes I'll do a vodka soda, but it's usually like these days it's wine. I usually just have a glass or two of wine while I'm up there, or a bottle. But like then I would have beers up on stage, and my beers were there because our crew was amazing, and and Matt called me out and was like, "Oh, he's really sick right now." And they didn't understand because he's talking English and we're in Japan, so they thought I was sick like with a hangover. He's like, "Oh yeah, he's really hungover or whatever. He's got to drink these beers." So he kept daring me to chug a beer in between each song. And I'm on steroids and antibiotics. So I left. I got really badly sick before we were leaving for this Japan tour. But it was like our first Japan tour, and I was like, I'm not missing it. Shoot me up. I'm getting on the plane. So I'm like deathly like fucked up. And Matt Berry tried, our crew guy tried to save me by filling up the cans of beers with water. But I'm a prideful guy. And I was like, nah. We're doing this for real. I don't care how bad I feel. So I just started chugging beers in between, and like he goes to hand me another bass during a changeover. And I said, "Hold on!" I went whack and just like fucking yacked all over the side of behind like our line, and I grabbed the bass and I was like, I feel better now, and I continued playing, and then chugged another beer. By the end of it, my wife was out with me. She didn't find it as funny as I did, but
yeah, I imagine that.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, Alan, ask Johnny our closing question.
Johnny, you got it. Thanks so much for being on. This has really been a lot of fun.
This has been fun, man.
Yeah, and we'd like to know where our listeners can find out all the information about what you're doing, how to support you, so on and so forth on socials and etc.
Oh yeah, man. So easiest way for us, for me personally, is Drinks with Johnny everywhere. That's really easy to find. drinkswithjohnny.com. Everywhere on your socials, Drinks with Johnny, everywhere you get your podcast, YouTube. It's pretty easy to find, just typing in Drinks with Johnny, and you'll find what I do as my little fun side project, getting to podcast and meet people like yourselves and have a good fun conversation. And for Avenged Sevenfold, that's easy. That's even easier to find, actually. So Avenged Sevenfold pretty much everywhere. And then, I mean, I have one personal social media account, and it's on Instagram. It is Johnny Christ Official. But the rest of it, I don't do I'm not very active on that. I'm more over on the Drinks with Johnny stuff. So I think that's the place to find me.
Fantastic.
And you will be found. All right, good. Yeah. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you, guys.
You so much, John.
Are we ready to switch over and do Drinks with Johnny and have a couple of drinks?
Yeah.
We are.
Let's do it. Let's do it. let's go to break, and we'll come right back where I'm going to be on the other side of this conversation asking you guys some questions now.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Sounds good. Yeah. We'll be right back.
Well, alrighty then. We're back here. Now we're ready to do a little Drinks with Johnny here with the guys from the Too Much Effing Perspective podcast that you just listened to them asking me some questions. Now we're going to crack a drink together and flip the script a little bit, and I'll be asking a few questions about these guys and their podcast and how it came to be. And, of course, I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Sam the Hawk Hawkins, who's come on to this session now, late as fuck, not ready, stupid wall behind him, doesn't even have a good background. And
Like
here we
us.
are. I'm cracking my electric melonade. Cheers, guys. Thanks for being here with me.
To you.
Cheers, Johnny.
Cheers.
And you, Sam. You guys with the gold microphones. Very impressive.
Yes.
Very impressed.
You know,
Wow.
you got to stand out. You got to stand out in this industry. There's a
I'm
million
not
fucking
that cool.
podcasts
Johnny
out there.
gave this to me. So
Yeah.
Nice.
Can I mention, since we are on Drinks with Johnny, which is really so much fun for us, I want to point out two things. One is, as an homage to our Alan's and my Wisconsin roots, I'm wearing my Point Beer trucker's cap here, right? And because I live in Portland, I'm wearing my Portland City of Roses shirt, where it's a skull with a rose at the top and a growler as the nose. So
A growler as the nose. Love it.
I put on my my Drinks with Johnny uniform.
You really geared up for it. What are you drinking there, Alex?
I am drinking a Freem Pilsner from trying to get out of the glare
Okay.
here.
Yeah, I see it. There you
Freem
go.
Pilsner from Hood River, Oregon. Hood River, Oregon.
Right on. And Alan, you're over there with just an elixir.
I got a
And
little
I just
elixir.
listened to you guys' most recent podcast with Rhett Miller, as he shared a story of who was it that he had to remind me who it was that was
Waylon
pronouncing
Jennings.
elixir? Waylon Jennings.
Oh, it's Jennings.
Yeah, and so everyone now that has just listened to these guys interview me, they have their own podcast. The Too Much Effing Perspective podcast is now on the Evergreen Network, where Drinks with Johnny lives as well. And we got Alan and Alex Hoffman here for that. It was great being on your guys' show. I'm glad everyone got to hear that. You know, a lot of our fans from Drinks with Johnny are Avenged Sevenfold fans. So those questions, I think they'll thoroughly enjoy some of those stories, because some of them I don't think I've shared because I couldn't remember them, to be honest. So I think that was a fun little chat. But yeah, explain to us, the listeners at home, the viewers at home, like how you guys got together and started this podcast that you guys have. And we'll start it off there, I guess.
You want to narrate, Alex? You're the podcast historian.
Sure.
A long time ago.
Yes. Well, it actually was
Galaxy
a long time ago. That's a good setup. Alan and I met 30 years ago. So we'll just date ourselves right out of the gate. We met 30 years ago this year. In 1993, we both lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
I was a fetus.
I was a concert tour manager. I was working with Radiohead and a band from Milwaukee called the Bodines. It was on Warner Brothers. And Alan had his new band called the Falling Melendez, and we kind of connected that way. I got his demo tape. I loved it. We started talking, and we became friends, and we have stayed in contact all these years, even though we have not lived in the same city since the late 90s. And as we were talking things over several years ago, we having both realized along the way that we had lived through every scene in This Is Spinal Tap in real life through our bands and through touring and that kind of thing. We sort of said, it'd be fun to do a podcast where we are talking to musicians and entertainers about their real life Spinal Tap moments, because we know they're real. And we've always enjoyed telling those stories to friends and family and stuff like that. So it seemed like the good source material. So that was kind of how we brought it all together.
And how long ago did you guys start that? I thought you said several years. Sorry, Sam, I didn't mean to step on your
go
dick
for
there.
it.
But when you said you started it several years ago, how long how many episodes have you guys done together now?
Like 68.
Well, we did. Yeah, that's right. I mean, we started talking about it. We started talking about it several years ago.
Now
Genesis.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
There was a gestation period before we gave birth to the podcast.
Well, I did tell you I was drinking that high 5 milligrams a second ago, so maybe I missed that part of the.
No, that's so funny you said it. So yesterday I go to this place to eat. This is off topic, but I go to this place to eat and I go, this is really good. And I tell my wife about it. She goes, "Done it, dummy. We just went there for our anniversary a month ago." I'm like, "No, I've never been here before." And she goes,
Awesome.
"No, you haven't."
Right.
She had to show me pictures. And of course I was stoned when we on our anniversary. So that's, I've
Get a video proof it to you.
yeah. She's like, "This is the place. Can't you see the sign?" I go, "Wow, I don't remember you having soft shell crab ever, let alone a month ago." Yeah. So I won't remember this podcast, I'm sure.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Except for except I'll have this nice feeling of something I enjoyed. I just won't know exactly what it was.
It was the elixir.
It was the elixir.
Yeah. It was the any elixir.
Elixir.
So you guys, that's a great concept, and it was very enjoyable to have just recorded with you guys that episode. It was a lot of fun. Sam, I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah, there's some stories in there I don't think you've even heard from me.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's some fun stuff. It's a great concept you guys got there.
Thank you.
And so, Alan, let's go into a little bit more of your musical career. You say you were in bands and stuff before. What's been your musical journey?
My journey. We never covered Journey. So I just want to say that out loud.
You gotta do it. Just
stop
once.
Believing, Alan.
You gotta stop. You can't stop. You can't stop believing, man.
What's the anthemic song? There's one like it's almost like
No, Faithfully.
That's
Faithfully.
Is there
Faithfully
another
is
one? When the lights
like
go down in the city.
Oh, that's Lights. It's just called Lights.
Yeah, it's just lights.
All right, so I saw Journey play that in 1980 at Summerfest in Milwaukee. I was walking. I wasn't there to see them, but I was walking and sidestepping all the teenagers making out on the wet lawn. Anyway, just a side thing, and I didn't pick up that song, but I was in a band.
It wasn't even a dewy night. It was just wet from all the makeout.
Bodily fluids everywhere. So 4 inches soaked into the topsoil.
And Johnny and Sam weren't even born.
I don't know if you guys have been through
through
the damp meadows, but I mean, I bet that smell was fantastic.
Oh, I say little organs grew up out of that turf years later. I was in a band called Women's Liberace in the late 80s, and that lasted for 4 years. And then I was in a band called the Falling Walendas, and we played pretty much from 93 to 2000. We got to enjoy that hot Chicago scene that developed out of Liz Phair and Smashing Pumpkins back in the early 90s when everyone was getting signed. We stupidly signed like the first deal with a jingles company.
Company.
Not shingles. They didn't have shingles. And they didn't sell shingles.
I thought they were a roofing company.
Exactly.
And my group and my label was
but seriously, what the fuck is a jingle company that's signing bands?
Ads. Jingles.
They did that. They were making jingle ads.
They're making jingles, right?
And they decided to sign a rock band?
They decided to start a record label. And so we signed with them like way too early because everyone was getting signed like within 6 months, but we jumped a little early. But what we did get to do was we got to put out 3 albums without any interference, which was great. And that was pretty much what we did. And then I put out an album in 2016, which you can get on on Apple, and it's called Happy Less, not Happiness, but Happy Less. That's a band. So, so that was the Smashing, the Falling Walendas. And then when we quit, half my band joined Brian Wilson. So I got to tour with Brian Wilson in 2002 and go to Japan. Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing. How is Brian Wilson?
Well, I've met him 10 times for the first time.
Okay.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes, he's a little. I'll tell you one nice. I have a lot of good Brian Wilson stories because there's a lot of good Brian Wilson stories.
I believe.
But
It.
one
I
I
mean,
remember.
I've only seen the documentaries, man. And
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan, but you can tell that the man's a little touched, and that's
He's a little
I mean,
touched.
and that's a lot of genius artists are. That's
Well, he's
sometimes
had-
comes with the territory.
He's got mental illness. He was probably molested
Right.
by his dad. He had a whole
Fuck, yeah.
cornucopia of
lot of shit
reasons.
he's doing, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but like once I met Brian in Madison. There was the Smile tour, and I went to see it. And my bandmate, who was still with the band, said, "Hey, come on, you gotta say hi to Brian." I go, "He's not gonna remember me." He goes, "No, you gotta say hi." So I go backstage. I go to Brian's dressing room, and he opened the door, and Brian is facing. The room is empty except for a card table chair, and Brian is sitting in it, not facing the door. He's in the opposite direction, and he's like turned off, like a cyborg, right? Like he's turning. And
Okay.
my friend goes, "Brian, say hi to Alan." And Brian turns around, and he launches like a javelin arm at me and walks up to me and almost hits me in the head, and I had to grab it to shake it like this. And that's the last I saw Brian.
Wow.
But he
Wow.
looked at me like, I mean, really like something out of Westworld. He's just like, he was
Yeah.
totally tuned out, and he almost severed me in half with his outstretched hand.
Yeah, but you'd be okay with that. Coming from Brian
No.
Wilson, if you take a slap, you take a slap. It's not a big deal,
I'm sure
I
it'd
mean,
been
the guy's
melodic.
a genius. God, man.
He's a genius.
I love the Beach Boys, man. I love the fucking Beach Boys. Their Pet Sounds is a perfect record to me.
Well, it's hard to
Isn't
find
it-
anyone who doesn't like the Beach Boys. You know what I mean? It transcends
Yeah.
generations, really. My
But up at
kids
the beach,
come home with it.
do they? So the Beach Boys, though, like what I feel almost insulted when someone says Brian Wilson, like, oh, the guy from the Beach Boys, right? No, he's far, far bigger
Absolutely.
than And my
Like Michael
my
Jackson
band-
from the Jackson 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't say that.
Oh yeah, I remember that kid.
Yeah,
What's he
yeah.
been doing? What's he been doing since then? But yeah, it's like Brian. Like Pet Sounds. Like I'm ashamed to say that I probably didn't hear Pet Sounds until I was in my late 20s. I thought it was the Beach Boys, and I kind of thought of Beach Boys as surfer band, right? But Pet Sounds is so ridiculously good. I mean, it's unlike anything else. It certainly is uber influential, and because my bandmate was in Brian Wilson's band, he met all of the people who admire Brian, which is like he was on first name basis with McCartney, and McCartney has said that God Only Knows is his favorite single, right? So yeah, it's pretty. And then Smile, which is an album that Brian wrote and had a mental breakdown and never was completed, and then the new band actually finished it in like the early 2000s, but that too has got songs on it that are like Heroes and Villains. I mean, like just ridiculously amazing songs.
Yeah, it's an incredible songwriter. It'd be
I
first
don't know if
names
you guys
just
have heard it.
nonchalantly.
Avenged covered that.
Yeah, we did cover
Gully.
God Only Knows. We did.
You
we
did?
a cover. Yeah,
You're
we did
kidding.
we did an extension on the last record on the stage. And we did some covers. Each of us will pick some songs, and I picked God Only Knows for us to cover. So we did that.
Nice.
So and the cool part of it,
Cool.
as we're talking about Brian Wilson real quick and talking about his songwriting, the cool thing about covering, which we don't do very often, and we haven't, but we've done a few things over the years. Blah blah blah. Cool thing about doing covers every once in a while, though, if you pick someone like Brian Wilson, who wrote such an amazing song, you kind of learn from it, from covering it, right? Like we're listening and dissecting each instrument and what they're doing and why they're doing it. You know what I mean? When you're trying to recreate it. So that was a real fun experience, actually.
It's also amazing. I think when you cover something, and it's not by the original artist, it really shows you how great the song is. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like
yeah.
you can't fuck this song up. This is amazing, right?
Oh,
and
you
it's,
can fuck up a song.
I've heard a lot of fuck ups songs.
I mean, in theory, you had me
I
going,
can't.
Alan.
I can't fuck it up. That's what
And you, Alex, I know that you, from listening to podcasts and us getting to know each other a little bit over the last week or so, you're a tour manager for X amount of years. Fill in the blanks here. I know you said you were out with Radiohead at a time. What's been your journey to have those Spinal Tap moments to even discuss?
Yeah, well, I was my first job out of college. So Alan and I both went to the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and but we were there we did not overlap. He was there first, and
It's a good college town, though. I
yeah,
love Madison. That's a good college town.
It's like, Boston is not a college town, but Madison is. And my first job out of college was working for Cheap Trick's manager, and he was based in Madison, and I worked for him for about 6 weeks, and then there was a little kerfuffle in the office between him and his female assistant, and he asked me to call the police, and I said I will not do that. And he said, "Okay, you're not going to do it. Fuck you. You're out of here too." So that was the end of my first job in the music industry.
Wow.
But then I
really thrown into the wolves there, huh?
Exactly.
It's not all that ugly, Alex. It's not all that ugly.
Yeah, I know. It was very, but it felt very, very stereotypical there at the beginning. But anyway, I started, Milwaukee. Interestingly, I moved to Milwaukee. Milwaukee has been the birthplace of a number of really interesting artists, like Violent Femmes. Jerry Harrison from the Talking Heads is from there. Liberace was from Wisconsin. These sort of the unexpectedly.
Spencer Tracy.
I don't think I knew that Liberace was from Wisconsin.
Orson Welles was from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Les Paul was from Waukesha, Wisconsin. Yeah.
Fred McMurray.
So,
I think we could just fill up the rest of the time going down the list. Let's go.
I'm going to take I got a phone book here. They still use phone books in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw, for some reason, I believe that.
Anyway, so I was hired as a complete greenhorn by the Bodines that had a deal with Warner Brothers. They were touring on their fourth album, and so they hired me. And so my first tour was on a tour bus. I didn't even have to schlep around in a van or something like that. So that was great.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, it was really. I mean, honestly, I look back and it was very lucky. And it was funny because when I was in college, I read the book The Hammer of the Gods, which was written by Led Zeppelin's tour manager, and was telling all those epic stories. And so, like on that first tour, I stayed at the
Edgewater.
What's it called? Oh yeah, thank you. The Edgewater Hotel in Seattle, where the infamous shark incident took place, and stayed at the Riot House in L.A. on Sunset.
Wait. I can't. We don't know this infamous story. I can't let you continue without telling me what this shark.
I'll envision a Saturday Night Live,
is.
like a giant shark comes and knocks on the door and eats them. Is that what it
Nice.
is?
Yeah.
That's historic.
Deep pool there.
Yes.
The kids today won't get that one.
I like it.
No, definitely not. But that's good. So
Johnny,
tell me the
I
incident,
thought
and then we'll continue with your
well,
story.
Johnny, I thought this was a family-friendly show. The shark incident story is not not for anything.
You think a show where
drink?
You think a show where the hosts encourage people to have a beverage with me as a family?
Well, anyway,
it's not sippy cups with Johnny. It's drinks.
Yeah.
Anyways,
wow.
You were at Edgewater, fishing for sharks.
I did not have my fishing pole with me on that particular trip, so I did not do it.
Yeah.
But stayed at the Riot House, which again, Zeppelin used to rent out an entire floor of the Hyatt on Sunset when they would do their U.S. tours, and they would rent a jet from Caesar's Palace, and they'd fly to every gig and then fly back to L.A. every night, and kind of were headquartered there. And that was kind of related in Almost Famous, the film Almost Famous. And so anyway, it was an amazing way to start touring and to kind of be experiencing these things that I'd read about and heard about over time. And then the next couple tours, my next tour was with a band on their first record called Balloon, and they were touring the U.S. and basically BMG was just putting money into my bank account, and it was those three guys and me, and we were just in a van cruising around the U.S. And so it was almost like being on a paid road trip with a bunch of buddies, just playing, little gigs along the way, playing at record stores and cafes and coffee shops and some proper gigs, and then spent the second half of the summer opening Sarah McLachlan, right when her when her career was really starting to blow up. So playing real theaters
Nice.
and that kind of stuff. So that was great. And then toured with the Chills from New Zealand, and that was one Spinal Tap moment after another. And then
how did you fall into
then
these? Were
PJ
they just
Harvey came.
people you met, or did you just
Yeah,
meet
it
friends
was-
and
well,
one gig would end,
yeah,
the
it
other
was-
would pick up?
Well, yeah, that's kind of how it was, Sam. It was like, it was kind of networking. Like it was, the management. You work hard, and for one band, and the managers have another band coming over, and they want them to be well cared for, and so kind of set you up with the next thing they have coming. So anyway, that's kind of how it progressed. But I got really lucky that I connected with the same agency that brought that band Balloon over. Had a bunch of huge bands. They had David Bowie and The Cure and Depeche Mode and Duran Duran. So they had these massive British bands, and they were sort of cultivating their next crop, if you will, of British bands. And so they brought over they had PJ Harvey, and so they brought her over for her first U.S. tour on the album Dry. So I tour managed that. And then, and likewise with Radiohead, and it just so happened that Creep was a massive hit on K-Rock and MTV, and so that was incredible because every show, it was a club tour mostly, so it was, every show was sold out.
They were in clubs at that time.
Oh yeah, played CBGB in New York, played like Metro in Chicago.
I thought they would, with the success of that single, as you said, I would have thought that would have at least jumped them up to theaters right away.
Yeah, no, they were doing. I mean, down in your neck of the woods, they were doing like, they played the Whiskey, they played the Belly Up down in where is that? Salon,
San Diego.
San Diego. Yeah. So yeah, it was that kind of, but it was super exciting. I mean, every show was, or almost every show was sold out, and the crowds were really fired up, and so it was, it was very exciting. And I said to those guys, having been on some rough tours, I said to those guys, look, it's not always like this, right? So enjoy the experience you're having. And they really, they're down to earth guys. They really appreciated it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point though, man. Like when you're going through the thick of it, it's like, it's not always going to be this way. If you keep at it, you put in your time now, and then it's easier, like we did, travels in fucking the Econo van with the trailer, shaking the whole damn thing down the road, and then get to your first bus, and it kind of sucks. It's kind of a shitty bus, but it's a bus, so you're stoked. And then, progressively, and then now we're like at a point in our career, luckily, where, we have 3 band buses, and so we could have our families come out at certain times, and then, 40 other employees and 6 other crew buses. It's a big fucking thing now.
That's amazing.
It wasn't like that before.
Don't paint that picture to your audience. I'm in worse accommodations now than I was 40 years ago. It doesn't always go up, guys. and don't think if you keep
Alan is here to keep everyone grounded and remind everyone that it doesn't
always
happen.
work out.
Don't shoot for the stars, kids. You could fucking manual labor is okay.
It always can get worse. Just remember that. That's what that's my motto.
It always can get worse. Yeah.
It is funny though, Johnny, that you mentioned that. I mean, it's like 3 crew buses and 3 band buses and 6 crew buses. I mean, that's when I think about that, that would be extraordinary luxury. I mean, it's like even Radiohead, Radiohead wasn't on a bus for that first tour, but it was 11 guys on a 12 bunk bus, so 45, and all the gear was in the bays underneath. We didn't know they weren't pulling trailers behind buses back in those days. So, so it's like we were jam packed in that thing, right? And those guys come off stage and they're sweaty and stinky, and so you got soaking wet shirts and soaked with sweat, like hanging in the front lounge and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's like a frat house on wheels.
Was Creep already a hit?
Our first bus was like that.
I'm sorry. Was
Yeah,
Creep
yeah.
already?
Creep was a hit before they.
Oh,
Yeah, Creep was a hit before they arrived. Yeah, so that's what made it so energetic because people were just, people were really, really fired up.
I remember I first
That's
heard that
awesome,
song on the SFW soundtrack. Do you guys remember that movie with Steven Dorff back in the 90s? They had this killer
SFW,
soundtrack
I
back when
don't recall.
soundtracks were the big thing.
soundtrack.
And yeah,
Okay.
back when they had tapes.
I
and
love the
CDs.
one from Dazed and Confused. That was a great soundtrack.
But that song's had such a resurgence. I feel like lately, you hear so many covers of it, and it's just everywhere. I don't know why it got picked back
massive.
up, but I love
Well,
it.
it speaks to every generation. It's a very it's a very relatable message, right?
Yeah.
Being a
Well, they
creep.
wouldn't play it
I
for a
think that
while.
is the
I mean,
key.
there was a good. I think there was a good decade where they refused to play it in concert.
And they just got over it.
During the early 2000s. Yeah, I think that's right. And even during that tour, Tom York, the singer and primary songwriter, is he's a kind of a curmudgeonly guy, and so they put it number 5 in the set list. Back then they were doing, let's say, 11, 12 songs in the set list, and so they put it number 5. They weren't going to have it be the big closing extravaganza or whatever. And I remember at CBGB, they got to that song and played it, and then after it was over, he very dismissively said, okay, the MTV crowd could leave. So
That's funny. I love when people, and I like when the artists embrace that though. Like I went and saw Primus this is several years ago now, they were main support for Tool. And, Primus, Les is up there talking in between. He's starting the opening to Mr. Crinkle, on his like stand up kind of thing with the violin and, with the bow rather. And he's just sitting there talking to the crowd. He's like, I know what you're thinking, everybody out there. I know what you're thinking. When are they going to play the Beaver song? You get the fuck off the stage. He's all, don't worry. We'll get there. We'll get there. And then he's like going through it. And it was brilliant. He was like, just like pointing out the fact that like a lot of times people are there to see your hit, or your hits plural, if you're lucky enough, and it's like, back to when we were having our conversation on your guys' show with that set list thing. It's like pleasing everybody is easier said than done sometimes. So
You guys mentioned
embracing that is
Well, you know how I was talking about, the relatability of Creep. One of the problems with my band might have been that, like I did an entire album that was, our demographic was going to be plumbers. And like one of the, I thought was a hit song was 1011 Copper Tubing. And it just did not go over well. And
not enough plumbers out there.
not enough
out
plumbers.
there.
Not enough plumbers. And electricians won't cross over. They won't do it. No.
It's I mean, they're elitist when it comes
Lessons
to it.
learned.
The electricians.
Yeah.
That's,
trade unions. That's the way it goes.
well, it's not too late. You could write another relatable song.
I got to pick a modern profession though, Oxcart.
A YouTuber.
Yeah, YouTuber, right.
YouTuber.
Influencer.
Yeah. Influencer.
Right. Shout out to
Well,
do you guys
guys-
know you live up in Portland, Alex. Have you ever run across Dewey from Pure Pleasure? He's up in Portland too, and he is a plumber. That's what brought it to my mind.
Oh, that's
Oh
so
yeah,
funny.
he is a plumber. That's right.
He has my single.
Yep.
I'm sure he's heard it.
He's the sale of one unit. Yeah, no, I have not. I do not know him.
Oh,
I'd
he's
like
a great
to.
guy.
He's another network friend here. He's on the Evergreen through STM podcast as well for his Pure Pleasure podcast. So I did hear one of his ads when I was listening to you guys' episode the other day. So
Oh, good.
I mean, yeah.
Ka-ching. There's eight. There's eight
Yeah.
8/80ths of a cent.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in podcasting, huh, guys? That's why
Oh
we
my
do it.
God.
That's why we do it.
Yeah.
I can't afford bigger bottles than this. Yeah.
Well, guys, we've been talking for a while now. I really appreciate your guys' time. We'll have to have you guys both on for like a longer, proper episode, but I thought this was a good way of introduction. Sam actually had the idea. Kudos to Sam. To just
Sam.
piggyback
Sorry it was
off
last
of the
minute.
episode.
Sorry it was last minute. I didn't mean to
But I
throw
think
that
this
in
would
there
be
like
good.
No.
5 minutes before we record.
Yeah, no, I think it was a great idea though to release this episode with you guys asking me questions and then turning it around good way for our fans to be introduced to your podcast. Again, why don't you guys give, as I did on the end of your episode, why don't you guys give us where you guys could be found?
Yeah, I will do that. So yeah, we're, as Johnny said, the podcast is
That's wait. That was amazing.
Look, he just points at you, Alex.
Alan is just pointing to the screen. Alex, you go. And I was like, I guess I'll be the one to do this.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the podcast is called Too Much Effing Perspective. We are sharing Spinal Tap moments with musicians and entertainers like Johnny. And some of our other guests, is okay if I call out, who we've had on the show. People like
Absolutely.
Tommy Stinson from The Replacements, Nancy Wilson from Heart, Butch Vig from Garbage, who also produced Nirvana's Nevermind, Carrie Brownstein and Corin Tucker from Slater-Kinney. We've had some great comedians on, like Reese Darby from Flight of the Conchords and Our Flag Means Death. David
Fantastic
Cross.
shows, by the way. I'm jealous of that one.
Julie Bowen from Modern Family. The list.
Hey, can before we go,
Actually,
Julie
Bowen is actually better known for Happy Gilmore. I just want to point that out.
Nice. Yes. Very good.
How did that one come about? Do you guys know her, or you just reached out, or how did that one come?
Yeah, I know Julie for a while.
Now you broke into jail, Sam. So go ahead.
Uh-oh.
Trying to get her to a Bucks Clippers game in LA with me. But yeah, Julia, in LA, it's almost mandatory if you want to succeed to have children. I mean, you have to do it. Figure out a way if it's hard, but you got to have children. I've met so many people through my kids' preschools and schools. So Julie's child, he was with my daughter. So we became friends.
Got it.
Oh, gotcha. Hey, that is a good reason to have kids. Networking.
It is.
You know?
It's the only reason. Let's be frank.
Absolutely. Okay, so real quick though, I mean, you guys had an amazing guest on. We're gonna now that we're friends, we're gonna be hitting you up for some of those contacts. So we'll exchange that shit here in a little bit. But amazing guest, amazing podcast. I've listened to it a little bit. I like what you guys are doing. It's really cool. Great concept. Got me to rewatch Spinal Tap, which I appreciate for no other reason. Just having a glass of wine last night and watching Spinal Tap and reliving it a little bit was a lot of fun. But I guess to send it off, I think you guys are always talking to other people about their favorite Spinal Tap moments. What can you share? One from each of you, and then we'll put a bow on this and let everyone go about their day.
Well, I'm going to be like David Cross, who midway through the interview insisted that he'd never seen Spinal Tap. And,
he said that halfway through the interview.
Yeah, and I think he was.
Yeah.
I think he was doing that to me, and I've totally.
Yeah,
we both were like,
we went for it.
You went hook, line, and sinker. I love it.
He suckered me at least 3 times in that interview.
David
very
Cross.
funny.
I mean, he's worked
met him,
with
amazing.
Christopher Guest, so it was like such an improbable thing. Yet we just kind of we bit hard. So
yeah.
Anyway,
but I think my
go ahead,
favorites. God, that is an amazing question that I never thought of myself.
Oh my God.
I never thought. Alex, can you take that one? But quicker than the last time.
No, just as long.
Let me slow us down a little bit, Alan. Let me take it down a beat. Let me take it down a notch. Yeah, I guess. I mean, look, I think the scene of the record store, the in-store where no one shows up, and they're just sitting there waiting. I mean, and of course that's the legendary Artie Fufkin "Kick My Ass" scene. I have been there with those in-store situations with your band where it's just like no one is there, and they're like, let's get the hell out of here. And then you hear from somebody, well, actually, we have a contract that says you're going to be here for an hour, so we can't leave. And it's just like, oh, kill me now. So yeah, been there, done that.
And I love that you said that you've been there, because it just sparked a memory for me too. We were we went to a military base in their like shopping center, and we were in the green room, and they had like an announcement over like, clean up on aisle 12 kind of announcement, PA system. And Brian Sinister Gates goes on the microphone. He's like, "Attention, all you Avenged Sevenfold shoppers. We're going to be out there in 5 minutes to sign all your autographs and meet you beautiful people." He's like hyping it up. We walked out. There was 3 people to sign some stuff. We were like, what the fuck are we doing here? And we had a laugh with it.
Yeah.
Luckily, they had our writer back there, so we just had some drinks and got over it.
Yeah.
All right, so then I'll
More band members than fans.
That's right. I'll agree with that. I once we were on my lead guy in my band with okay, this is the worst way of saying it. Okay, me and my bandmate went to do Best Buys to promote our album, right? And so we're playing acoustic guitar in a Best Buy on a weekend. Can you imagine? So first of all, that's hard enough, but of course it got harder when someone wheeled a refrigerator in front of us. Just left it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's intentional, but it might have been. Like when we played a state fair once, and we were told to turn down because we were disturbing the pigs.
Wait, when the refrigerator just gets stopped in front of you, obviously that's the pick me up you needed that day. But
yeah, totally.
Was it all? I mean, did you try and play through it, or did you guys get so discouraged to be like, the fuck?
We had no option because they just, it was just, we had to kind of try to stretch and be on either side. Like that was our third, we were Peter, Paul, and the refrigerator was Mary,
Should have Eddie Veddered it and climbed to the top and just jumped
I know.
out.
Yeah.
I didn't have enough
Use it as a
cord. I didn't have enough cord.
Yeah. Unfortunate. Well, guys, thank you both so much for being here with us today. Really appreciate it. Everyone go check out Too Much Effing Perspective podcast for more from these guys, more great stories from a slew of their great guests, including yours truly, which will be coming out in December, right? Yeah.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, with more stuff.
Not telling you what year, but December.
Ish.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, exactly.
If I'm still around,
And can we also call out, Johnny? Can we also call out that we're on socials at TMEP Show?
Yep, you just did.
There we go.
We can.
Okay, good. But if we,
really nice meeting you
If we
guys,
can't, we still
Johnny,
will.
Sam. Very much fun.
Hey,
Thanks a lot for having us.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah, really
Thanks.
appreciate it. We'll be in contact through emails. I'll send you guys my number. Actually, it's easier
Please do.
text that way. And we'll keep in touch. And to everyone at home, thanks for tuning in. As always, till next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.